Welcome to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. I'm your host, Mari Riesberg. Over the past several years, I've combined my degrees in acting and somatic psychology to share my sustaining creativity techniques with performers, and now I've decided to share it with a bigger audience that includes you. I believe we are all creative, and this podcast is all about that. I'll be interviewing people from all backgrounds, ages, and creativity experiences to share just how creative we all are. Today, I'll be chatting with Stephanie Ann Ball, lyric coloratura soprano, entrepreneur, concert curator, and author. She's been invited to perform as a soloist in operas, oratorios, and on concert series alongside world-renowned composers across the country. She has also created concept programs that showcase the many contributions African Americans have made to classical music. Please enjoy Stephanie Ann Ball. Sustaining Creativity Podcast. I'm so excited that you're here. Today we're here with Stephanie Ball. I was introduced through a mutual friend, Aaron Vega. I actually saw the 6 Feet Apart vlog that he did and was just so inspired by it was like 5 minutes of hearing the two of you talk and seeing little snippets, and he sent me a message and I immediately said, please connect me. I have to have her on my podcast. I want to talk to her more about creativity. So welcome to the podcast. I'm so glad you're here.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here and to chat with you and have a fun conversation and see what kind of creative things we can uncover tonight.
Excellent. Well, why don't you share a little bit about who you are and what you do so our listeners have a sense of where you come from?
Yes. Well, my name is Stephanie Ann Ball, and I am a concert curator and also a high performance specialist. So 2 very different things that are also closely related, which we'll get into in a little bit. But essentially, my background is in classical music. I'm an opera singer, and these days I do a lot of concert curation. So I will put together a concert based on art songs and arias and oratorio pieces and perform them specifically for different organizations in a recital format. And when I'm not doing that, I work as a coach, as a consultant in a consulting firm that I started, and I help people who are struggling with things like overwhelm and stress.
Nothing. I have no experience with that.
Nobody's heard of that, right? You know, little things, procrastination and low productivity and, you know, just all of those things that can keep you stuck and keep you from gaining momentums on the goals that you have set for yourself. So that is one of the other fun things that I get to do, is help people get that momentum back and start finding more time to have more fun and enjoy the things that matter to them.
That's amazing. I love that idea. I mean, I think as a kid, I thought, you know, being someone like that would be awesome, to get to be creative with other people, but I never really thought it could be a job. So hearing that that is your job is awesome.
Thank you. I think so.
You can create anything to be a career and a job, and other people will,
for sure,
you know, pay you for it, which is even better. So
exactly.
That's amazing. And I love that you are an opera singer and a concert curator. That is amazing as well. I am a huge music fan and a singer myself also. So more in the musical theater world, but
I love it.
Appreciate the opera as well. So yay, I'm so excited. And I know you also just released a book. Is that
I did.
True? Please,
yes.
You want to share a little bit about that? I know it just happened. We're in the middle of July, or towards the end of July right now.
Mm-hmm. I would love to. Yes. So the book just came out. It is called Own Your Light, Becoming Your Favorite Self So You Can Bring Your Best to the World. And it has been a project that is kind of a long time coming. It was one of those things where I had like this little idea, I should write a book. No, that's silly. No, really, I should write a book. No, that's silly. And it just wouldn't go away.
Yeah.
Like the idea wouldn't leave me. And so eventually I said, okay, fine, let me sit down and write this book. And I wanted it to be a piece of work that linked together my two worlds. That's the one question that I get asked quite a lot is, well, what does singing have to do with high performance?
Mm.
And how did you end up here? How are you doing what you do? And I finally said, okay, let me just put this down on paper.
Yeah.
So I go through my whole background and I talk about how I, went to music school and how I fell apart when I finished music school, and I was just lacking all of the skills that you need to actually get a job. And I was stressed and overwhelmed and a hot mess. And I had to completely, redevelop my skill set with the help of a fabulous teacher. And along the way, I got obsessed with personal and professional development and started coaching other people on how to do it once I became good at it. And so the book is a combination of that story plus stories that I picked up from being on stage and working with clients, and it has tools and tips that I tend to share with people a lot. And I decided to focus on the concept of light because of my background in the theater. I mean, when you have to find your light on stage, like physically figure out where it is, and then you got to move your body into it, and that's the only way people will see you.
Oh, yeah.
And so it takes a lot of courage. And for anybody, it doesn't matter what industry you are in, if you really want to give your best, you have to be your best first and have the courage to put it out there. So that is what the book is about. And you can get it at ownyourlightbook.com. And it's my new favorite thing.
I love it. That's amazing. Yeah.
Thank you.
That's such a feat to have put that out into the world and share your story and your tools and tips and pieces with other people. And now they can have it in their own home. That's great. That's amazing. I love it. So definitely go out and buy Stephanie's book.
Yes.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it sounds like creativity is such a huge part of your life and has been, what I'm hearing, for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
And when you think about creativity, what does it mean to you to be creative?
Mm-hmm. So I've always been a creative person. I always had, an overactive imagination, and I was always pulled towards the arts and drama and excitement and bright colors, all of that stuff. And I didn't really learn how to harness it until I was much older.
Mm-hmm.
For me, creativity is allowing yourself to be open and free enough to find when the inspiration hits you, so you can let that lead you to a result.
I love that.
Thank you. It's just like, if you want to do something and you can't get there following logical steps, you just have to let go a little bit and just allow it to come through you and see what happens.
Yeah, that surrender to inspiration, or surrender and see what happens.
Yes.
It's such a challenging skill and yet profound.
Yes.
That's amazing. Do you have experiences in your own life where you've had to surrender and then the creativity comes or the inspiration arises? Do you want to share anything that comes to mind?
Yes. I mean, all the time, especially when you take the leap from, working for someone to being an entrepreneur and having your own business, there is so much creativity. I mean, yes, you have to pay attention to your numbers and you have to track your data and you have to do the research and this and that. But holy smokes, there's problems popping up all over the place. And sometimes the answer is not what you think it is. So when you allow yourself to go, okay, I need some kind of creative solution to this so I can make it to the next day, then it becomes much more fun and easier and way less stressful if you just allow yourself to approach it with a little bit of attitude of playfulness. So you can figure out what to do next.
Nice. It's
like a game.
That's awesome. I read a study. Oh man, I'm not going to remember when I read it, but it's about how the neural networks in your brain process things, and you learn things and can turn them into habits if they're done through play so much faster than if they're done in an alternate fashion. So I love that idea of finding a way to create it into some sort of play or game to help your system integrate it even more quickly than it might otherwise.
Yes, for sure. I mean, when you think about when you're little, that's how we learn things.
Yeah.
Singing songs and playing games, that's how we learn basic concepts. And so I think we forget that as adults. We forget how to play, and we forget how to use our imagination sometimes. So just tapping into that can be really useful.
Absolutely. And you're kind of just leading me into my next little question. When adults kind of bump up against that challenge of finding their imagination, and how do you, or I guess it's a two-part question, what challenges do you come up against, and then how do you move through those challenges?
I would say there's a couple of different places where I get challenged by creativity. One way is when I'm up against a deadline. If I feel like I have to be creative within a certain set of constraints, then it can be very difficult for me. This weekend, I was writing, coming up with all sorts of names for new products that I'm launching in the next few months, and writing social media. And I just like sat in my office. I just sat and I covered my office walls with flip chart paper and calendars and all these things. And I said, okay, I'm just going to spend all day in here, and I'm going to get it done so I can get to work on Monday. And I just spent most of Saturday just sitting, looking, and I couldn't get to it. And so I had to just take my own advice and just take a break. I took a break for a little while, and I watched something fun, and then I just turned on the most dance-worthy music that I could find, and I just bopped around my office, and then the ideas started to flow a little bit more freely. But that's probably the biggest, is when I'm up against, I have to beat the clock and finish something.
Yeah.
That can be hard. Deadlines.
Whew. They are for sure rough, but I love the kind of tip or skill of moving your body and letting your body kind of cycle through stagnant energy to then say, oh, wait, there's that idea. Or I'm just going to move my body however it wants to move in this moment, and put on some great tunes and let that move my body, and something will shift and happen. As a somatic therapist, I'm like all for that. So
yeah, I love how you said that, just letting the energy move to a different place. I think that's exactly it.
Nice. Yeah, that's amazing. And I imagine also working with clients as a consultant, they come up against big and small challenges with creativity. And what are some of the ways that you work with them, or what are some big challenges that they come up against, and how do you navigate that?
I fold creativity into all of my processes with my coaching clients. I think it's so important. And one of my favorite things to do when I do have someone who is stuck on something, and like you said, it can be a really big thing that they're working on if they're building out the details for a huge project, or sometimes it's really small, like I don't know how to make a to-do list. It doesn't matter. Sometimes people just get stuck. And so one of my favorite things to do is tell them to go ask their kid how they would solve the problem.
Oh, nice. You're the second person who said this. I love that.
I mean, it's so great because kids, you give them a complicated problem and they come up with the most nonsensical answer. And, either you just laugh hysterically and have so much fun that you figure it out, or they actually give you something really good that you never would have thought of. Kids are brilliant, and they're so tuned into things that we can miss as adults, so they can be a really excellent resource.
Yeah, and that lack of kind of self-censoring that we as adults can easily fall into. What a great idea. And yeah, what a great way to get out of your own head and utilize the support you have in your life around you.
Yes,
nice.
For sure. And the other thing I have all my clients do is to bring back a creative activity that they loved when they were little, that they don't allow themselves the space to do anymore. So if you were taking music lessons as a kid and you don't anymore, dig out your old trumpet or whatever and bust it out and just play with it every now and then until, you get those those juices kind of flowing again. If you like to color or draw, start doing that on a daily basis. And soon that's the habit that builds. You just get into this frame of mind where you can tap into your creativity much faster, and it becomes a regular part of your problem solving process.
That's awesome. Do you have one that you have revitalized from your own childhood?
I love to color and I love to bake.
Ooh.
And yes, see, and during when the shutdown happened,
Yeah.
I've always wanted to learn how to embroider and how to do calligraphy. Like I'm some sort of lady of the court.
Lady of leisure. I love it. That's awesome though.
I started doing that.
That's amazing. Embroidery, calligraphy. Yeah, they're kind of lost art.
Mm-hmm. They're really fun and very soothing.
Nice. I can imagine. I have done both in my life. And when I was a kid in school, we had calligraphy classes and embroidery or cross stitch and yeah. But that, it just makes me think of like when my grandmother, you know, after she passed, going through all of her stuff and the embroidered handkerchiefs that she had, or that's kind of bygone times pieces, but that's so fun to say like, no, I'm gonna do it. It's not gonna be an heirloom. It's actually gonna be something that I did.
Right. It's fun. I mean, I was obsessed with crafts when I was little. I was like, I drove my mom crazy because I was always asking to go to the craft store. She couldn't keep me out. Just go, and I would just wander all the aisles, and I would look at all the stuff, and I would spend my little allowance money on. Do you remember those little like pom-pom balls, those little brightly colored?
Oh,
yes. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I totally know those. I had
yes, right. I would get them in those huge bags, and she bought me a hot glue gun at one point. So I was like ready. I had my pom-poms and I had my hot glue gun and a bunch of googly eyes. And I would just sit in my room and I would make these little like teddy bear animal creatures. And I had so many. And I just had so much fun playing with the different colors and the different sizes. That should have been my clue that I was going to grow up and combine creativity with entrepreneurship, because I also always tried to sell them at our yard sales.
That's perfect though. I remember those. I remember there was like, I want to say late 80s, early 90s. Yeah, there was like a movement of those, and they even had those plastic feet that you could get and stick them on that. I remember making those with my grandmother and yeah, that was, I totally connect with what you were talking about.
Oh man, what a memory. That's hilarious. I haven't thought about that in ages.
Would you say that that's your earliest memory of creativity, or do you have other memories about creativity from childhood?
I would say that and dolls. I created very elaborate worlds for my dolls to inhabit. And I had a lot of Barbie dolls and I had a lot of Cabbage Patch Kids. Nice. And so, you know, sometimes they would get in a fight and it would be like the giants versus the tiny people or whatever. But I really, it was a whole universe in my head and I could just stay in there for hours.
Quite the storyteller, it sounds like, too, with the Barbies and the Cabbage Patch. I had both of those as well. Yeah, story, I think, is so powerful. And, you know, as kids, we play out a lot of the challenges we're experiencing or the narratives that we're seeing in our lives with adults or teachers or families. And yeah, I think story is very powerful and a lot of fun, and you can learn and grow and like overcome things through story as well.
Yeah, it's such a great way to teach too. Like if you're trying to teach concepts that people don't quite relate to or don't quite grasp yet, if you fold in a story to illustrate the point, that is sometimes the most perfect thing you can do to really make sure everybody has that light bulb moment.
Yeah, it sounds like that's what people remember. I know I remember stories that people share. Like I'll probably remember the pom-pom creating googly eyes story.
Yes.
Yeah. That's so great. Googly eyes just make things fun and
They
funny.
make everything fun. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah, if you see googly eyes on something, I will laugh. I will have some childhood memory, or it will, yeah, I just think they're super fun.
Yeah, me too.
Well, as we're along the lines of googly eyes and maybe inspiration, when you think about what or who inspires you, what comes to mind?
My students and my clients give me so much inspiration for so many reasons. My students, so I also teach private voice lessons. I have a small studio, and most of them are middle school, high school age. I have a couple of adults, but they're just the best. And I have been so blessed to have this incredible, hardworking, like driven batch of students. And they're up for any kind of challenge, and they're so resilient. So many of them are they're the kind of students where if they don't get an audition or they don't get a role from an audition, they're like, all right, well, when's the next one? When do I do it again? And it's just amazing. And it just makes me want to be a better teacher and find more tools and more opportunities and things where I can really help them grow and help them get to where they want to be. And with my clients, I the kind of person that I love to work with. I love working with people who, I mean, obviously you need to have some help in the areas of organization and stuff. Like you have that problem. But I love working with people who are fun and who don't take themselves too seriously and who understand that this is something that they can fix with a little bit of help. And so my clients and I just have the best time. We're constantly laughing and sharing stories, and that helps me to create more content and more solutions that help them see that, yeah, you can do this and you can solve this, and you don't have to be, chasing your mile on to do this all the time. And it's not even a big deal. Like, you can change it. You can learn how to undo this habit and build a better one and have fun at the same time. This is a joyful process. And so I love people who come to me with that kind of attitude. And it's just, yeah, it makes me want to do my job better so I can be more helpful.
Yeah, I love that idea of making it a joyful process, or being able to see it through that lens of this is a joyful process, and buying into that. And I mean, I can only imagine what that shifts for someone when they change their perspective to say, oh, this is a joyful process. This isn't something I have to slog through or, carry a heavy burden with. That where is the joy? And it sounds like you are an excellent proprietor of joy.
I hope so.
You bring it with you.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of sort of shame around this idea, especially for women. I work with a lot of women, and there's a ton of shame around this whole idea about being disorganized or about not getting as much done as you feel like you need to get done in a day, especially for women, because we all, we're running in a million different directions and trying to take care of a ton of different things. And there's this idea that we all have to look perfectly put together all the time. And that's just not realistic. And so when these women come to me, there's always this idea that there is something wrong with them, and they are somehow the problem. And so there's a little bit of hesitancy around even wanting to ask for help, because we all feel like, I should know how to do this. Why don't I know how to do this by now? But it's not you. It's not your fault. You're not the problem. You just need some different tools, and you haven't found the right ones yet. So by trying to make it into a more joyful, more fun process, that immediately busts through all of those myths that you are the problem, because you're not.
What a beautiful reframe. And I can imagine how powerful that is in the moment, to have someone say, no, you're not the problem. We got the answers. We're going to fix this. We're going to figure it out, and we're going to do it together, and let's have fun doing it.
Yes. That's fun.
That's amazing. It sounds also like you have a pretty strong community around you as well, with students and clients. And when you think about your community and the community you're a part of, how does your community impact your creativity or influence your creativity?
Mm-hmm. I have been really blessed by being able to draw more inspiration from all of these incredible musicians and entrepreneurs that I know,
Mhm.
just because, to be in either one of those fields, you have to be able to tap into your creativity at any given moment. And so it's so fun to watch all of the cool things that they're doing. And if I get stuck, if I have a problem, I can call one of them up and say, hey, can we just toss some ideas around? And it creates this really exciting sense of being able to all support one another and kind of work together towards, doing something incredible for the planet in our own unique way, and being able to use fun and creativity and joy together, even though we're all working on different things. Like, we all have a little specialty, and being able to lift each other up to get through the process is just excellent.
Yeah, what a gift to have a community at
Mm-hmm.
your fingertips like that, to be able to reach out and say, I'm stuck with this. Can I bounce some ideas off you? And I imagine you're also on the receiving end of that from other people in your community when they get stuck with ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
Yeah, it always comes back around. And I mean, community is critical. Everyone needs a community. You we cannot do this life alone.
So
That's too
true.
hard. That is not it.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to do it alone. I think the community is so important, and the different ideas that other people bring that I may not have even had been aware of, that can make things so much more rich or colorful, or, just, I just think of how other people are able to see things when I have blinders on, of like, it has to be this way. And then someone else comes in and says, well, have you thought about this? And my response probably is, nope, sure didn't. But that's an awesome idea. When I think of creating new community and moving and what that's like, the creativity that goes into building a new community, or meeting new people, and how to create that new community in a new space. Because I feel like that takes so much creativity and, just support and creativity to engage in the community that you aren't initially a part of, that you want to be a part of. So I wonder what that experience was like 2.5 years ago.
Yeah. Oh gosh, that's such a great question. Because you're right, it is hard. It's really challenging. And especially the older that you get, you do kind of just have to make it up and look for places to connect with people.
Mm-hmm.
So I grew up in Arizona, and then went to college in Arizona, moved to St. Louis, Missouri for graduate school. So that was a very, you popped right into the school environment, and it's like a built-in community full of people for you to connect with. And then from there, I did a lot of local and regional music stuff for a while. So it's more, people.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I moved to Denver, it was a little bit harder because I just moved. And it was me and my husband and 2 of our friends. We all moved from St. Louis to Denver together. So I had the guys, and we were all working with the same teacher. So we became friends with some more people in the studio. And then we all did the musician thing, and we had church jobs and regular jobs. So there was a little bit of networking and community building there. But Philly has been the hardest because we just moved. We just moved here because it was time to be on the East Coast.
Yeah.
And we don't know anybody here. My husband has a couple of cousins here, I think, but that's it, really. And so I started going to tons of networking events, and I just kind of dove headfirst into the small business scene here. And I joined a local Rotary Club, and I just started going to things, and I have met some really incredible people here. But you do have to just find things that are interesting to you and be willing to sort of dive in and just put yourself out there. and then the connections will come.
Yeah, I love that. And what would you tell people that kind of struggle with maybe putting themselves out there or moving someplace they don't know anyone? What, I imagine this can come up working with clients as well.
Yes, for sure. This comes up a lot when we get into the part where I'm really kind of looking at all those details around how your brain works and how you process information. And I always do a section around extroversion and introversion. And yeah, I am an extrovert through and through. I am like an extrovert.
Wonderful.
I have no problem, whatever. So my suggestion for people who are a little bit more reserved or more on the introverted side, or even if they're feeling shy or if they have social anxiety or anything like that, find the most extroverted person you know and ask them to help you.
That's great advice, though. I think that's fantastic. Yeah.
Get some help. You don't have to do it by yourself, and you certainly don't have to go into an environment where you're uncomfortable alone. Don't do that. Get your extroverted friend to go with you. Have them make the introductions for you. Have them play, your wing person and help you connect with other people so you don't have to do the things that you don't like, because that's no fun.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I think that's great. I know when I kind of moved for school or something like that and had a bit of a specific thing to step right into with a community or other people that I was meeting. But at the same time, going to grad school for psychology, but coming from a theater background, which was so different. And then how do I get into the theater group in the area that I was going to grad school in? That was a very different experience of submitting myself for auditions and all of a sudden hearing names, like repeated names in the community. I'm like, that's that person. Now I can have some point of reference that was very different than the school community as well. But I like that idea of finding your connectors, because there are extroverts. I am also an extrovert.
Yes.
We can be connectors. We're great at it.
And we're happy to do it.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, when you think about kind of your everyday life, what is an everyday issue that you've had to use creativity to solve?
An everyday issue. So this pandemic, this is like so small and so trivial, but it makes me laugh. Having to come up with something creative to cook on a regular basis has been so hard.
Heard. I hear you.
Okay, it has been so much more challenging, and I don't even do most of the cooking. My husband does the majority of the cooking. We have this kind of crazy balance where I will come up with something ridiculous that I want to eat, and he'll be all excited about making it. So that actually works out really well for me.
What a great team. That's amazing.
Yeah. But man, because we cycled through our usual stuff for a few weeks, and I said, I can't do this. This is not it. This is not going to work. So then we started busting all kinds of stuff and roasting Cornish hens and, so that has probably been the most creative endeavor as of late.
I love it. And I love that idea that, cooking or deciding what you're going to eat for dinner is a creative experience, and it's part of a creative process.
Yes.
That helps other people open up their eyes to see like, oh, creativity is not just performing in a theatrical performance, a musical performance, a dance performance, or fine art. Creativity can be, what am I going to make for dinner? Or how am I going to get dressed? Or
yes. It is everywhere. Creativity is in the smallest things. And how magical is that you can find it in the tiniest places and give yourself this little extra burst of fun and joy no matter what you're doing. Like, what a gift. That's such a delight.
It is. And I love that, just a burst of magic or a burst of creativity that can propel you into your day or through an event. That idea, I'm going to take that idea with me. I love
Yes,
it. That's
take
awesome.
it.
Well, if you had to tell someone what your secret to creativity is, what would you say?
My secret to creativity is to get myself into a place where I can let go and become the vessel for it to come through me. So whatever that means for you, if that means you spend time meditating or doing yoga, for me, I just like to sit and listen to, motivational, inspirational stuff for a few minutes every morning. But that gets me into the right frame of mind to just allow myself to relax and release and surrender and be more creative. Once you allow yourself to be quiet, then you can listen to the information that comes to you.
That's fantastic. Yes. Being able to be quiet so you have more capacity to hear or experience inspiration. That's beautiful.
Thank you. And sometimes it comes at you when you're paying the least attention.
So true. That is so true. I have definitely experienced that. And that's a good reminder too, because I think at times we can try and I have to be creative. I have to have this creative idea. And then you go for a walk and you see something like, I don't know, the mailman, or I was listening to a podcast earlier where someone was saying they were just kind of at someone else's concert and the performer told a story that inspired them to write a play. And they were not expecting that to happen, but kind of trusting that inspiration can come at any time and it will come when you least expect it.
Yes. And sometimes not until you're ready also, because sometimes if there's a big problem and you're really working on it, you're just not in the right place to be able to take action on the idea yet. So sometimes you don't get it until you can do something about it.
That's a really good reminder. I think that I know in my own self, there have been times where I have expectations that I should be having some brilliant, inspired moment. And then when I get out of my own way or, time passes and it was like, oh, I really wasn't ready for that then.
Yeah.
Now I am.
For sure. Like this book that I wrote, I didn't get the idea about how to put the book together until I had the time and the energy and the space to sit down and write it. It was so perfect how it all worked out. And I know if I had gotten it, even just 6 months earlier, I would have just let it sit there and I wouldn't have written a thing. So it wound up showing up right on time.
Perfect. And it sounds like you have the capacity and willingness to trust that process, that it's going to show up when it needs to in the perfect moment and you'll be ready.
Yes. Yep.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me this evening. And if people want to learn more about your book and how to connect with you, where might they do that?
I'm very easy to find. So you can find the book on ownyourlightbook.com. You can check me out on my website, stephanieannballconsulting.com. And I also hang out a lot on LinkedIn and on Facebook. So if you are a person, if you're listening to any part of this and you're going, oh yeah, I don't know where my time is going and why I can't seem to get anything done and why my office is a mess and my to-do list has 187 things on it. If that is you and you are afraid to ask for help, please find me and ask me for some help. I will help you. It doesn't have to be like that.
I love it. That's excellent. Well, thank you so much for chatting. It's just been such a pleasure.
You are welcome. This was a delight. I had a great time. So thank you for having me. You are so welcome.
Thanks for listening to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. We'd love to keep in touch, so like us on Facebook and Instagram. We are Sustaining Creativity. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Tag your friends and your family so they can listen too. We love to hear from you, so leave your comments, reviews, and questions. Tune in Tuesdays for a new episode. And remember, with creativity, anything's possible.